1 second. There we go.
See, just like last week.
There you go. You are live.
Now we're ready to go, right?
We are live. Thank you.
Okay, good. We will now call the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council to order. And I will entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. The ayes have it. With that, we do have a couple of items that are up for a public hearing this afternoon as well as this evening. And for those that are new, that are joining us just today, that are here, reference the public hearings. And the procedures basically are, we will get a report, obtain a report from the planning department in reference to the conditional use request. We will then, after that report, we will then ask for comments either in favor or against. We ask that individuals be mindful of our time as we have plenty of council committee meetings this afternoon, but we will certainly entertain any comments that may come from either those in favor, against, or those just wishing to ask questions. We will then repeat that procedure this evening at 7 o'clock. After that, after the 7 o'clock meeting, the committee will then make a recommendation to all of City Council as to whether we will pass, turn down, or take time on a particular conditional use request. Okay. After the public hearing is over, we'll close the public hearing, open it up for questions from committee and council members. And also be mindful that before the actual public hearing, both this evening and this afternoon, we're going to ask that you be sworn in from a representative from our law department. Okay, so those are the procedures in reference to the public hearings that we'll have this afternoon. And with that, we'll just go ahead and dive in. And the first item that is up for a public hearing is ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a horticultural and volunteer center at 714 North Portage Path and declaring an emergency. Mr. Antonucci, we'd like a report from the planning department.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Stan Hewitt Hall and Gardens is requesting permission to utilize the north end of Reynolds Avenue to provide restricted volunteer access to and construction of a relocated operations area at the northwest area of the estate. One of the conditions of the 1988 ordinance permitting the current use of the property requires public hearing before Planning Commission and City Council for any public access to Reynolds Avenue or Trentwood Drive, and any construction or development on the Stan Hewitt Foundation property within 100 feet of the boundary of properties fronting on Reynolds Avenue or Trentwood Drive. The new operations buildings would include a 55 feet by 129 feet volunteer building, a 48 by 225 foot storage barn, and a 46 feet by 128 foot greenhouse. The buildings have been designed with vertical wood siding to blend with the natural surroundings. The volunteer building would be located 108 feet from the south property line, while the storage barn would be approximately 102 feet from this south property line. The 29 space paved parking lot east of the volunteer building would extend to within 65 feet of the property line, while a 12-foot in width emergency access drive south of the building would be 53 feet from the property line. And this is the north property line of the properties that are fronting along Trentwood Drive. An additional 55-foot parking space would be provided north of the storage building. A supplemental line of landscaping, including a mix of evergreen, shade, and ornamental trees and shrubs, would add to the current landscape screening along the south property line. An electronic keypad gate at Reynolds Avenue would provide a controlled access for part-time volunteers and emergency vehicles only. All other traffic, including deliveries, well maintenance, and full-time staff, would utilize either an existing gated service drive along the north side of the property or the internal drive to the east, which leads to the manor house. Signage at Reynolds Avenue entrance would indicate that access is controlled and only for volunteers, and a stop sign would be placed at the Trentwood Drive intersection for leaving the site. The proposed buildings are part of a larger phased plan, which includes relocating these facilities from their current location at the northeast corner of the site in order to repurpose that area for additional visitor parking, with as many as 164 parking spaces there. Insufficient on-site parking has led to on-street parking within the surrounding neighborhoods, renting parking space at nearby schools and churches, and even busing patrons from businesses in the Merriman Valley. The planning staff is of the opinion that the proposed development is in the best interest of all parties. Additional landscaping is provided to further screen any noise and activity. The gated keypad access would be for a controlled group of volunteers at designated times, limiting the increase in traffic. Only a small portion of the volunteer parking lot and emergency access drive are within this 100-foot buffer from Trentwood Avenue properties. Allowing the relocation of these facilities and allowing controlled access for volunteers will allow for new visitor parking in a location that preserves the amenities of the estate, and the new parking would reduce the burden and congestion on the surrounding streets. The Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing portion of this conditional use request. And we'll ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use. I'll ask that you please provide for the committee your address, your name and address. And so with that, we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please signify by saying aye, or I'm sorry, please feel free to introduce. Mr. Joyce?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Well, first of all, thank you for the committee's time and everyone else who's joined on this call. Just really appreciate you taking a moment for us. I just want to share, and Mike did an amazing job covering all the details, so I don't have to cover much of that, but really the product of this project is really come as a result of Stan Hewitt's recovery over the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, Stan Hewitt was seeing about 85,000 visitors a year, trying to rebound from a financial collapse in the economy, and was facing significant deficits. Fortunately, we've been able to turn that story around, and we have added another 50,000 visitors a year, not only locally, but also regionally and nationally. We're one of the few attractions in Akron actually bring guests from outside the region. And of course, we've tried to be a community asset to the region as well. Much like the Cyberling families, we're so committed to the community. We try to carry that forward. And this project is really a project to catch up on the growth we've had. Obviously the increased traffic has bled into our neighborhoods along Portage Path, Garmin Road, and surrounding when we have events. And this project is going to help us accommodate that parking on site and keep people safe. If anyone's come to Deck the Hall or seen Portage Path during Deck the Hall, sometimes we have people walking up North Portage Path to get to our facility, which is not the best ideal situation from a safety standpoint. So we're trying to find a way to accommodate that traffic on our property and try to be as least impactful to the rest of the community when we have our major events. This project is $2.1 million. We've been fortunate that the state of Ohio has given us about $1.3 million in grants, and most recently, we were one of the top awarded projects in the county. And again, just giving testimony to what we're trying to accomplish, not only for now for Stan Hewitt, but also to give us some ability to continue our progress in the future with just this organization as a nonprofit desperately needs to be able to. And unfortunately, we are somewhat restricted as far as historic property nationally and state and locally, that we can only do so much inside the fences. On the historic property, you see guest tour on a daily or event basis. So this property, this access point is critical for our volunteers to be able to access the facility, which they will be able to work out of. It'll be a drastic improvement to the 1956 bungalow that's on the lower part of our property that they're all squeezed into now. and allow also for us to provide much needed warehousing and storage, as the half of that building is. So we're expecting, a couple dozen volunteers, maybe on average throughout the year, to use the facility. Time to time, there'll be some bigger meetings with volunteers, I'm sure. And of course, right now it's pretty quiet because a lot of them are either south or are staying protected because of obviously a pandemic that's still on us. So that's really all I have to say. We can continue to try to be an asset to the community and our neighborhoods, and we want to be able to, continue the great work of Stan Hewitt and the mission of the Cyberling family.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. There's and I'll call upon people as they signed in. However, though, I forgot to ask that everyone be sworn in, everyone who's testifying from our law department. So Ms. Advent, I assume you're the one here to swear in everyone. So I'll turn it over to Rebecca Advent from our law department to swear everyone in.
Thank you. Those wishing to testify, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today is the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to ask that Jill Pfeiffer, is Jill Pfeiffer on?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. So Jill, unfortunately, her mother had a bad fall a couple hours ago.
Oh,
So
sorry.
she is dealing with that situation. So, we really have her mom in our thoughts and prayers right now. But Perry Bacino, our project manager, will cover her part of this. And so
Very
I'll
good.
turn over to Perry.
Yes, sir. You should unmute yourself, please.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Apply for the committee, your name and address.
Name is Perry Bacino, and address is 714 North Portage Path in Akron, at Stan Hewitt.
Yes, sir.
So Sean covered the first part of what Jill might have covered as far as the why and the benefits and the overview of where we are kind of headed with this and the reasons for it. So I don't know if you guys can start with the slides. We'd want to go to the site layout plan.
Yes.
That's C100. And so if everyone's there, basically providing some orientation from the previous, the railroad tracks are to the north, and the estate is to the east, and Reynolds is to the south. The primary entrance to the Peach Orchard site is from the north. To the west, prefabricated greenhouses and polyhouses and bulk storage area. The containment bins are comprised of precast concrete.
Are we supposed to have I'm sorry, are we supposed to have a map in front of us?
So we were told that Ms. Pfeiffer Ward was going to be screen sharing. Is someone else going to do that in her absence?
Do not have a map.
Sorry, we're told the opposite that by her. That's a miscommunication.
Yes.
Sarah, can I pull up the slides? I have them.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Just one moment.
I'd also let council know they're also within our on the agenda. We also have them located, I believe it's the right ones, on our on base.
Councilman, I have some drawings as well. If you can't get them up, I can pull up some drawings. I don't know that I have I have a site plan.
This, Perry, is this what you'd like to have up?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
just let me know when I need to proceed.
yeah, go ahead. You
Perfect.
can go to the one that'll say site layout. That's C100. Next one, I believe. There you go. Yep. Okay. So so providing some orientation. So the railroad tracks are to the north, the estate is to the east, and Reynolds is to the south. The primary entrance to the Peach Orchard site is from the north. To the west, prefabricated greenhouses and polyhouses and the bulk storage area. The containment bins are comprised of precast concrete blocks, And the stormwater management facility will be underground detention chambers and is delineated on the layout plan. As a side note, the city of Akron fully approved our long-term maintenance agreements and everything. And I'm meeting with Julie with Summit Soil and Water on Thursday for her walkthrough and a pre-con meeting. So the two gravel areas to the east and west of the circulation drive area, are enclosed with gated chain link fence, containing existing natural gas wellheads, one of which is going away. So now there's two wells, one which hasn't been in use for a couple of years or so and will be capped in the spring. The parking lot to the east will support the volunteer building, and an access drive to the south of the volunteer building will allow for offloading and pickup of materials. And finally, the volunteer entrance will connect to Reynolds by way of a key card controlled gate, and the maintenance building floor plan and elevations will be shown in the next slide. So if you could click to the next one. That would be C300. That's it. Yep. The existing site's natural characteristics are consisted of a wooded terrain sloping to the south and to the north and to the southeast to the north. A large wetland area to the north remains and is to be protected. There's also a centrally located existing natural gas well, as I mentioned, one which will go away. The intent of the grading plan is to nest this site into the hillside and tuck the building so that they are concealed from view, as well as making the smallest footprint possible. Beginning on the south side of the project, south of Reynolds, we're depressing the grade to bring us down into the volunteer building and parking lot ADA compliant. There's also an 8 to 10% grades bring us down into the maintenance portion of the site, and grading here is transitional and allows for drainage. We have prepared a couple of renderings that will illustrate how the building will nest into the hillside, and I'll show you that in a second. Next one. The landscaping plan consists of basically restoring the disturbed areas within the maintenance area and lawn and areas outside the fence with a no-mow mixture. The volunteer building will receive a treatment of perennials and ornamental trees and shrubs, and the hillside between the buildings and the neighbors to the south will receive a mix of shade, evergreen, and ornamental trees to buffer the neighbor's view. As another side note there, all of the trees that are along that property line now are still there. The final plant list will be compiled by Stan Hewitt Horticulture team. Okay, so the next slide is basically will be the floor plan for the volunteer building, which will compile of 2 restrooms, some breakout areas for archiving and the volunteers, a small kitchenette, and the lower portion is the pole barn, which will have a small restroom, the sanitary grinder that will then pump uphill to Reynolds Road. All of our services will come in off of Reynolds. Next one. This is here we have just the basic side elevations of the volunteer building. It's pretty straightforward: metal roof, metal siding, windows. Again, the colors are meant to blend into the site and into the shrubbery and the greenery. And because they're nestled down lower than the elevation, the footprint of the floor plan. In other words, the floor elevation of the volunteer building is actually 9 feet lower than the existing backyards in the south, and the pole barn is close to 20 feet lower from finished floor to backyard elevations. All right. Here's just another side view of the pole barn buildings, and the maintenance buildings approximately 10,700 feet, with the volunteer building being about 5,700 feet. Site lighting is currently on the building, and any other lighting will be determined. The next one will show you a rendering. To the picture to the left shows what the existing entrance looks like now, and then what is proposed. So our goal is to make it look aesthetically pleasing without drawing attention to itself, adding more shrubbery with a security access with a sliding gate, and basically enhancing that end of that street. The next slide is close to what it looked like when we cleared the trees, when we had a permit to clear the trees almost 2 years ago. We used some of the soil. We just finished redoing our lagoons here at Stan Hewitt. So some of the clay we used, but for all intents and purposes, the site looks like you see it here, with our silt, our screening up, and ready to take it to the next level. And then the last one, or the next to last one, it shows what would be looking west if you were coming down our drive from the internal drive at Stan Hewitt, what the buildings look like. And you can see how the pole barn is 9 feet. It's almost 10 feet lower than the elevation of the volunteer building, and what the parking lot the parking entrance would look like. And then the far parking to the west. Again, the colors are, I don't know if they're in gospel yet, but they want to be where they'll just kind of blend into the site. And again, the entrance off of Reynolds would be key card entry only, with limited access for, as Sean mentioned, for volunteers only. And all other access would come in off of North Portage, would be deliveries, the well services, any maintenance. So secured, literally, I think it would just be volunteers, and then emergency vehicles, like fire department would have to come in off of Reynolds. And that's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I understand also Mr. Giles, architect of record for Stan Hewitt, is present and available for questions, short of any comments you may have. Okay. Not hearing any. We'll then move on. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Okay, not hearing anyone. We'll now move on to those that wish to speak against. First, I have Mr. E. Spencer Muse, attorney at law. Mr. Muse. Are you with us?
Mr. Muse, I believe you're muted.
Apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee. My name's Ed Muse. I live at 591 Reynolds Avenue with my wife. We moved there in 1999. I've provided a memorandum on behalf of myself, my wife, and other members of the neighborhood. And I've given that to Sarah Vivino, is that right? Viviano, to circulate to members of the committee and council. I want to go over that a little bit, but for those of you who may not have seen it, we're talking about a project of 23,783 square feet in 3 buildings with 84 parking spaces that will provide a workspace for approximately 500 volunteers who will put in between 55,000 and 60,000 hours a year. The plan is to have them all come off the residential streets of Reynolds and Trentwood Avenue. Now, there has not been a traffic engineering study provided by the applicant And I don't know, and to my knowledge, if anything, how much the city engineering traffic engineer has looked into this yet. But the comments from the applicant are that this would be a minimal traffic impact. And just looking at the numbers, with all due respect to Mr. Joyce and his profession as a certified public accountant, I don't believe he's qualified to comment on what the traffic impact is of over 500 volunteers putting in 55,000 hours a year. And it's not even over a 12-month period. It's over a 10-month period at best, because the hall is closed now for the winter months. In 1983, when activity was first started in this area where they proposed to put this complex, the first gas well, one of 5 gas and oil wells that are back there on the properties, only 2 affect this site. But the very initial one in 1983, the conditional use that permitted the placing of a oil and gas well in a residential neighborhood specifically said that all access to the well site be from North Portage Path. And that's an important thing to look at. They're not landlocked. They don't need the access off of Reynolds Avenue to access this complex. They have a road that comes off of North Portage Path along the railroad tracks. And I had an opportunity, thank you, Mr. Joyce, I appreciate the opportunity, to walk the area with Councilman Fusco and Malik last Tuesday. And there's absolutely no good reason why that access cannot be widened to provide access for their volunteers. It is paved, and they have built it up with different types of asphalt materials they've borrowed from other projects. And yes, it would require some work, and certainly it would require money. But as Mr. Joyce has pointed out, they've got a grant from the state of Ohio. They've, in the last 10 years, turned around their financial condition, according to him. So at least on these years, the argument that it's too costly to have the volunteers use that access falls on the death on these ears. And that I think one of the most important things too that I'm advocating on behalf of the residents of the neighborhood is that a traffic study be done. We don't have all the data. We have these approximations provided by Mr. Joyce in terms of the volunteers. We don't have good information on the times. The best information we've received is that the volunteers come and go. They're not on a set schedule, because naturally, if they're volunteers, I assume they're not required to be there at any specific dates or time during the day or year. The access as it stands now, I just learned this in the since the last Thursday or Friday of last week. That area where they provided the rendering is a dedicated, unimproved right-of-way. That was part of the original plat when this development was first platted back in, I think it was 1956, when Stan Hewitt began to sell off some of their properties. It has not been improved, but it has been used consistently for access in violation of the 1983 ordinance. That particular area, if it's going to be improved, I believe is going to have to be approved with city street specifications. In addition, they're proposing to put a concrete island gated keypad into the dedicated right-of-way. The site plan's difficult to see, but it's approximately 20 feet from their southern line of their property. The residents do not have an axe to grind with Stan Hewitt. We have no malice. It just doesn't make sense. When you look at the size of the complex and the size of the project on a 5.5 acre footprint, there are plenty of ways to make this project move forward in a manner that is both fits the needs of Stan Hewitt for their growth and protects the residential neighborhood. The parking, overflow parking they discuss occurs mostly with Ohio Mart and the Father's Day car show. It's a couple weekends a year. Yes, there's parking on our streets, but it's not unbearable. We can live with that, but we really should not have to live with the kind of traffic that will be proposed with this project. So I would ask the committee to take time and ask the applicant to provide a traffic study engineer so that we can have good objective facts to make a decision upon. And as I said, recently having found out the status of the access that they propose to use, I think there's additional information that needs to be looked into with respect to how that access would be built out. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. At this point, I'd like to ask Katie Urbank of Trentwood Avenue, if you'd like to introduce yourself and provide first your address.
Hi, I'm Katie Urbank. I live at 1128 Trentwood. I'm on the south side of Trentwood, the third driveway from Reynolds. I've lived in the neighborhood since 1994. I would like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak today. I find Stan Hewitt is a gem to the community. I'm all for Stan Hewitt and enjoy it. However, I do have my concerns about this project. First and foremost is that entrance is supposed to be used for emergency exits only. However, there's construction traffic that comes in and out during various projects. The last time the oil well was drilled, we had large equipment coming in and out of the neighborhood on trailers. The road got crushed up. There's mud. More recently, when they timbered out the property, it was all access for the timber company. The employees were in and out of there. It was, it's a quiet neighborhood, and it's a bit disruptive. And I mean, it's a neighborhood. It's not a construction entrance. And they say that there's a North Portage Path entrance for construction vehicles, but it's not being used, or very minimally. Even about a month ago, there was a big earth mover that came in through the back, and they said it was an anomaly, but it's the norm. Back when they did the oil well, the big semi came through the neighborhood. It hit a telephone pole or a electrical pole. The wires fell down, and live wires went through the truck. So again, it's not sufficient, or it's not made for construction people or construction vehicles to come back and forth. One thing I do enjoy about our neighborhood, there's two things. The neighbors, we're a close-knit neighborhood. We all know each other. And also the second thing is how quiet it is. And as Ed spoke to, we are not sure, the volunteers, there hasn't been a study done or good numbers showing how many cars will be in and out of the neighborhood. And I have my concerns with that too. There's a lot of new families moving into the neighborhood with little kids or children, and they ride their bikes up and down. So now we will have the increased traffic on Reynolds coming in and out.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to offer, Ms. Urbank?
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'd like Eva Manbeck. If you'd like to make comment, you're welcome to. Might be on mute. On mute.
Ms. Manbeck, do you see a prompt that says the host is asking you to unmute?
On the bottom left.
There we go.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I'm not too familiar with Zooming. Thank you for including me in the discussion. My name is Eva Manbeck. I have been a resident, a homeowner since 2005. I've experienced a lot of things over the years with Stan Hewitt. It's a gorgeous place. It's a pride of Akron, but I do feel that at times they've had little regard for our neighborhood. And now I understand, you know, Mr. Joyce is concerned about safety for people going to their events. Well, he should also consider the safety of the residents of our neighborhood. As Katie had stated, and we are a quiet neighborhood. We do walk often in the neighborhood. A lot of us have dogs. We walk our dogs. There's a family at the end of the street that has 2 small children right in the area where they're going to have the entry gate. I feel that Stan Hewitt has the address on North Portage Path. I feel that all the, I would hope, let's say, I hope that all the employees, all the trucks, everything enters the property from your address. Not this, you do not have an address on Reynolds Avenue. So just, and I also can't understand why this project was started before all the approval was done for it. It seems like it's a case of putting the cart before the horse. So thank you for our consideration, and thank you of our safety.
Thank you, Ms. Van Beck. Thank you. Next, I understand that Cynthia Morris may be calling in. Is that
Is it unmuted?
happen, Sarah? Do we have a caller?
I do not see that she is called in for this one.
Please keep me posted in case she does. With that, I'll ask, is Ashley Taylor available at this point? I understand Ashley Taylor signed in to speak. Ashley Taylor? Okay. Next, I'll ask if Lori Davis would like to speak. Lori Davis? Do we have Lori Davis here? Okay, not hearing or seeing Lori Davis. I do see Jeff Lane, I believe. Or I did. Yes, Jeff Lane. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please feel free. If you could please provide for us your name and address. May be on mute, but it doesn't appear that way. Okay.
Mr. Lane, I can see you, but I can't hear you, and it doesn't look like you're on mute.
Yeah.
You want to try to adjust your volume settings? I know for me, it's at the bottom right-hand corner of my screen. Just make sure all of your settings there are.
Hey, Jeff, this is IT. If you look at the bottom left of your Zoom screen where you see the mute button and the microphone, there's a little up arrow. If you hit that up arrow, it's going to give you some audio settings, etc. It'll allow you to test your speaker and microphone. If you want to test that, it will allow you to know if your microphone is working. Also in there, it allows you to make sure that you select the correct microphone for your system.
You talking to Mr. Lane?
Yes.
You also have the option to call in. That's in the information that I emailed you. If you want to try that instead, you could dial the number and enter the information.
This is Katie. I'm at Jeff's house.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, that'll work, Mr. Lane. If you could please provide for us your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jeff Lane. I'm at 1113 Trentwood Drive.
And Mr. Lane, if you could maybe cut off yours, because we're getting an echo.
I'm gonna put your into the waiting room, and then you'll be able to speak without the echo. Give me just one moment here.
Yeah. Take this one off.
Okay, now you should be able to speak without the echo.
Okay, how's that?
Good, thank you.
Okay, again, my name is Jeff Lane. I live at 1113 Trentwood Drive with my wife, Karen. We've lived here since 2000 with our two daughters. They've grown up here. We really appreciate your time and paying attention to the matter with Stan Hewitt. Stan Hewitt has been a good neighbor. We appreciate them being in our community. It is a great attraction for Akron. I think we all want the best for Akron, for Stan Hewitt, for our neighborhoods. As some have touched on, we feel it's a safety issue, first of all, on the access at Reynolds and Trentwood. We have people in the range from babies and strollers to 90-year-olds who are walking with walkers in our neighborhood. Increased traffic, which we're not sure how much traffic will be increased without a study, proves to be somewhat of a risk for those people. You're saying that some of your volunteers are elderly. I understand, but some of ours are as well in our neighborhood. We would hate to risk anybody having any kind of issue with the entrance at Reynolds. I think the proposition before us does have an alternative, and that would be Portage Path. It's a main artery. It's meant for commercial use. Reynolds is a residential neighborhood, which isn't meant for increased traffic flow. It's not a cut-through street. It's purely residential that spans a couple hundred yards, and that's it. We don't feel that it is appropriate to put it there. And I think with the number of children entering the neighborhood, I think as Katie Urbank talked about, it just becomes more of a safety issue for all of us. We do like having people visit Stan Hewitt, as we have. It's a great attraction, but I think an alternative can be reached between the two of us that's cost effective for them and beneficial for us in our neighborhood. And I think most of the neighbors would, if not all, would agree with that sentiment. We appreciate your time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Thank you for your input. Appreciate it. I'm going to keep the public hearing open. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak either in favor or against the proposal at 714 North Portage? Is there anyone else? I see Reverend Walker here with your hand up. So please, you're welcome. You're always welcome here at Akron City Council. And
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the members of council. My name is Curtis Walker, been a resident of 1109 Portley Drive since 1993. Raised 3 children who graduated from Firestone High School. My concern is that, as many have already expressed, Stan Hewitt is a wonderful attraction, a wonderful contribution to the Akron community. It's well known throughout the country, even the world, and we are grateful that we are right in its backyard. However, we are in its backyard. We are concerned about the traffic pattern. We're concerned about some of the activity that has occurred already that is questionable. Questionable about permits, questionable about whose land the entrance actually belongs to, questionable about the fact of the original intent in the property. And speaking with and receiving information from former council person, there are rules and regulations that are already in place that said that this property would not be used for anything but access for maybe emergency vehicles, not to provide access to volunteers and increase in travel on rentals, as well as not just rentals, but all of the other streets leading into rentals and coming off of Garment, because we don't know in what direction volunteers are coming from to make their way to that proposed entrance. As Mr. Muse said, I think there needs to be some study, additional study as far as street. I'm a walker. I walk around this neighborhood and particularly around that entrance daily. My neighbors see me. We greet each other, fellowship with each other as we walk either our dogs or walk ourselves. I believe that this would be an increase in traffic, therefore increase in hazards and risks to the elderly as well as children who live in this community. It's a very quiet community, a very peaceful community, a very sharing community, as it was already highlighted by the other neighbors in our community. And we don't want that destroyed by increase of traffic, increase of other activity that will take place. Because once a road is built, even though there's a keypad there, then that gives Stan Hewitt maybe other options or opportunities to use that entrance for other things. Their belief right now is to use it just for that. But that opens up the door. And as already been expressed, there are other options. Off of Porter's Path, which is the main thoroughfare, the main avenue, that seems to be the most appropriate way to have entrance to the new buildings that are needed, additional parking lots that are needed. And that appears to be the most appropriate avenue for that to take place. So I would hope that the committee would reconsider, would definitely take time to do additional studies, and then ultimately that Stan Hewitt and the community, the neighborhood would come to an agreement, and hopefully that agreement would be not to use that as an access road for the volunteers coming into that building. I want to thank you for all of your tremendous work that the council does and continues to do. Thank you for the leadership, chairman and committee members and other council persons that are on the call, and grateful for the neighbors in our community who are speaking up against this particular project. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Walker. Thank you for all your input. I'm going to ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor or against the proposal at 714 North Portage? Anyone else? I don't see anyone. Sarah, do you see anyone?
I don't see anybody at the time. Lori Davis is here, but she said she does not want to speak at this time. She may speak at this evening's meeting.
Very good. Perfect. Again, I'd like to invite everyone back this evening at 7 o'clock. Basically, we'll repeat the procedures again, and afterwards, the committee will make a recommendation to all of council. At this point, though, we'll close the public hearing portion, and we will ask if there's any committee members have any questions relative to this conditional use request. Does any committee members have any questions whatsoever? Any questions? Okay. Oh, yes. Samples, Mosley Samples. I think I saw your hand.
You did. I couldn't find the raise hand button, but I finally did. I have a question for one of the builders of this project. One of the residents mentioned that the project had already started. I'm just trying to get an idea or have you started in mind with you may have to go through the main entrance? Because that sort of confused me a little bit, that they're saying that you guys already started a project that we haven't voted on. So if someone can touch on that.
Yeah, I can address that. So 2 years ago, we started working with the city, with local agencies to start the processes we could go forward with it. We knew we're not going to be interrupted by, like I said, maybe this condition. So the tree clearing and rough grade, we received permit and approval from those organizations to let us go ahead and move forward with that work. And that's where we've stopped. Knowing that either way, we're gonna have to build a facility, and what use we get out of it could change based on that. But we were able to kind of get that process done and move forward. That's where we stopped. And as I took Councilman Malik and Fusco through the walkthrough with Mr. Muse last week, we showed kind of where that progress was. And I don't know if I don't want to step out of order, but I don't know if I can answer anything that was brought up too. I'll be happy to do that. There was a few points I wanted to clarify that would be helpful to the committee, but you can let me know if that's possible.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's any further questions, and you'll also have that opportunity tonight at 7 o'clock. Any other committee members have any questions? Any committee members? Okay. Any council representatives have any questions whatsoever?
Mr. Chair, I can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. Representative Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone. I think we've heard a lot of discussion. I just have a couple comments and 1 or 2 questions. This conversation is about finding a balance between Stan Hewitt and the neighborhood. As the neighbors have said, we all value what Stan Hewitt brings to our community, not just in Northwest Akron, but across the city of Akron, whether it's their interactions with Akron Public Schools or, even giving a place for folks to walk this past year during the pandemic. As has been said, in the 80s, Stan Hewitt made a deal really with the neighborhood, and Councilman John Frank was involved with that in terms of having that Reynolds access so that emergency vehicles would be able to access this gas wells that were put in back there. And Stan Hewitt's needs have changed over time. I think that the parking project on Portage Path is desperately needed to alleviate some of the folks, even I see as I'm driving home a lot of days, folks walking off of Mayfair or other streets and crossing, especially at night, it can be pretty hazardous. So I appreciate that they're working to resolve that issue long term. The question is, how do we balance that? And I think the premier issue is traffic access, whether the access is there on Reynolds or whether it's off of Portage Path. As Mr. Joyce mentioned, he and the rest of the folks there at Stan Hewitt and Jill with EDG, they've been very kind in terms of having a number of meetings with myself, with Mr. Muse, with Mr. Fusco, walking back with us there last Tuesday. It was very muddy. That access there on Portage Path is pretty narrow, and it would be difficult to widen it. But at the same time, it's unpaved right now. It's remaining unpaved. And it does seem like there's a situation in which it could be paved. There could be some barriers put up so that the incline is not a danger for folks coming off of that road, and that could be used, since the plan is for it to be used for all other traffic other than the volunteers. I think Dr. Walker, as always, offers some insight when he says that building that access on Reynolds, it could be used for volunteers for now, but it sets a precedent in which, it may be the most convenient as needs continue to change for Stan Hewitt, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And so I think we have to be very careful. The one thing I wanted to say is that, some of the neighbors have expressed concerns that the Reynolds access has been used by construction vehicles and other vehicles over the years when it's really only supposed to be used for emergency vehicles, and that is frustrating to me. The other thing is regarding permits. I spoke with Summit Soil and Water and with City of Akron, and just to clarify the discussion that we just had, Mr. Antonucci, I wanted to ask you, does Stan Hewitt have approval for the grading that has occurred or not?
Yeah, not that we were able to find, actually. Looks like in checking with our plans and permits manager, there hasn't been permits issued for Stan Hewitt since 2013, I believe, is what he had told me. There is a condition actually in this conditional use ordinance that there's be a bond posted if this is passed. And along with that bond, there's a requirement that there can be no grading or permits, any kind of permits issued, including grading, until that performance bond is posted.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. And just to that point, I also spoke to Summit Soil and Water, and I know that Stan Hewitt is in the process of finishing the long-term maintenance plan document, but the fact that substantial grading has already occurred before that permit has been acquired, it is frustrating, and I've shared that directly. And so, I think that there are a number of issues. I would encourage council that we take time, that we look and get back with our planning staff and see if we can find, and with Stan Hewitt, with the neighbors, find a solution that is something that we can all live with, that maybe that area on Portage Path can at least be paved. Maybe it can be one way in on Portage Path and out on Reynolds, some kind of solution. I know that, in all candor, hearing from the residents, one of the concerns is that Stan Hewitt often puts together plans that do have residents in mind, but they're brought to residents and there's not much of an opportunity then for feedback the other way. And a relationship is a two-way relationship, and balancing those needs is important. And I want Stan Hewitt to build these buildings. I want Stan Hewitt to prosper and be successful, but that's sort of my perspective on this. And I just wanted to share that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Any other questions or comments? Council members. Mr. Joyce, did you want to make any comment at this time?
Well, sure. Well, I definitely will follow back up again on our permanence. I thought that we were in good standing. So I'll follow up with Mike and Jill as far as the clearing grading we've done. I just want to make a few points because Shamus, and I have had a lot of different discussions, and obviously I can't speak to what has taken place before I joined Stan Hewitt, but I do want to be a good steward to the neighborhood. Shamus himself even brought up, part of the system is broken with the opportunity to have discussions with the public as much as we'd like to. So I would definitely look at that. I did want to point out though, as far as the volunteer usage, we did talk about this as a group last week. Again, while we have 600 volunteers, there are only 200 active volunteers at a given point in time. That volunteer counts every volunteer puts in a shift at Ohio Mart, for instance, or Deck the Hall. It's not the group that's going to be using this facility, which is the group that works on preparations for Ohio Mart. So, again, I just want to make sure everyone knows what we're really dealing with as far as traffic, because currently that work's happening in 1,200 square foot bungalow, like I said. So it's that group that's being moved to the back of this property. But I know one car is too many, and we do have tried to look at that other access. We're hinged by environmental concerns surrounding it, the drop off to the right and the incline to the left, which we walked through, and it's only a one-way lane access that we'd have to monitor our volunteers for. But again, we've been willing to look at everything, and we will continue to try to do that. But again, we do want to be good partners, and I as the leader of this organization, I want to make sure we are as well. So I appreciate the time of everybody, and definitely the great patronage of our neighbors, and I appreciate all the input. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Joyce. Thank you. Short of anyone else with any questions or anything, any other comments, we'll again invite everyone back this evening at 7 o'clock. After that public hearing, we will then make a recommendation to all of City Council. And I'd like to invite again everyone back at 7 o'clock for the additional public hearing this evening. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay on. However, we're going to now move on to our next public hearing, which is ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct a two-family dwelling at 764 Excelsior Street. Mr. Mike Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
I apologize. Before we start again, I'm going to need to swear in if there's anyone here wishing, ask the law department again to swear in anyone who wishes to testify either in favor or against this proposal. Ms. Advent, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak during this public hearing, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Advent. Okay, Mr. Antonucci, it's now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Well Akron CDC doing business as Middlebury Housing LLC is requesting permission to construct a new two-family dwelling at this location. The existing lot area is 4,000 square feet and the street frontage is 40 feet. The proposed home is a 2.5 stories with first floor and upper floor dwelling units. The first floor unit has 3 bedrooms and 1 bath. The upper unit has 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. The dwelling has a gable roof and full front porch. The dwelling will be clad in horizontal vinyl siding with PVC trim. The proposed design of the home is very compatible with the existing residential context. Numerous two-family and multifamily dwellings exist on similarly sized lots in the neighborhood without negative impact. The developer intends to build at least 6 more of these units in the neighborhood. The majority will be built on wider lots that will accommodate off-street parking spaces. The two-family dwelling type is desirable for infill in our traditional neighborhoods. The housing type will provide a new, affordable rental housing option for families who do not want to live in a large apartment building, and it will give them the benefit of living in a home with direct access to a backyard. Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Antonucci. At this point, we'll open it up, the public hearing portion, and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use request on Excelsior Avenue. I see Mr. Zach Cole is here and had signed in to speak to the committee. I assume that's in favor of Mr. Cole. I'm sure it is. So please, by all means, if you can please provide for us your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Zach Cole. I live at 47 Jewett Street in Akron. So really, this is this duplex design has been a long time coming, and has really grown out of the neighborhood plan that we worked with the community to create in 2018 and 2019. One of the 5 kind of strategic focus areas for the neighborhood plan, which can be found at our website at thewellakron.com. You can download the full plan and review that, or I'd be more than happy to share it with anybody. But one of the priorities was really making a context where we could invest in our housing stock in Middlebury. So that's the Well has been working on that for about 4.5 years. We have just acquired our 54th property to rehab. So we've completed about 38 of those properties and are in the process of, we believe out of the 60 units that we wanted to do in 60 months, we believe we will be completely done with those 60 in actually 48 months, about a year ahead of time. So we've made a lot of progress on the acquisition rehab side. But one of the things that our neighbors said loud and clear was, hey, there's been a lot of properties in our community that have been torn down in the last several decades. And so what does it look like for us to continue to invest in our property by bringing new investment into the community? And so we believe that a duplex has all kinds of benefits beyond just, hey, having a new dwelling place in the community. A duplex creates opportunity for first-time home buyers where they have passive income coming in from the other side of the duplex, or in this case, maybe the first level or the second level of the duplex. But it also thinking about generational living. So in our community, we have a lot of seniors in our community, and then we have a lot of young like young families in our community. So really, how do we bridge that gap and create an opportunity for everyone in our community to be able to see themselves staying in Middlebury for the duration of life? So the second floor of this unit, we believe would be great for like a young family. So with 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, it's a place where you could potentially live with a few kids. But then the first level, which could potentially be handicap accessible, would actually be an opportunity for aging parents or someone else to live on the first level. We were really intentional with the design of this, is keeping kind of the historic structure and the historic bones of the community, which again was something we heard loud and clear from our neighborhood plan, was that as we see new infill development, we really do want to see kind of that stereotypical old 1920s and 30s, 40s built properties where you see kind of the rectangle in the front with the front porch coming off the top with a 12-12 pitch roof and an accessible 3rd floor. So as we've been thinking about designing this with Peninsula Architects, we were really intentional looking back at what we heard from the neighborhood plan, honoring the bones of our community and building in the style that has been present in Middlebury for well over 100 years now. If we feel like it's appropriate or I need to, I could share some of the renderings from the plan so that people can kind of get a picture of what that looks like. But I guess I'll leave that up to you guys to see if it's something that, if you want me to share the renderings.
No, I would recommend that you do if it's easy to access.
Yep.
Briefly, if you don't mind.
Yep, I have it up here. So can everyone see my 3 tabs here?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just the initial front view of the property. So again, what you can see is the 3-story construction with accessing the front. One of the things we wanted to be really intentional about was that the access to the 2nd level was actually on the interior of the house. So what you'll see here in this front corridor is only a single front door that you would see from Excelsior. The 2nd door is actually on the side of the property. But the entrance to the 1st level and the 2nd level duplex is contained within the unit. And you can see, again, the front of the building is very typical to what you would see in Middlebury. The square front with the 3 stories. And then you can see it kind of bumps out the back, so it takes up more of the depth of the property with keeping size and the ability to have bedrooms and things like that in a duplex. This page here, I'll make this full screen so that we maybe make it a little bigger, is looking at the floor plans and the site plan for the property. But you can see the 1st level is this view here, where you're walking in the door. You're coming into a large living space and then kind of a gully or alley kitchen off to the side. And then 3 bedrooms with a full bathroom. One of the things we were looking at was trying to get laundry on the 1st floor. There is a possibility that could end up in the basement, accessible to both units. But then you go up to the 2nd unit, you go up the steps, again, mirror image of the living space and the kitchen. But then you have stairway up to the 1st floor, bathroom, and then 2 bedrooms on the 1st level. Again, going to the 3rd floor with the 12-12 pitch, we're actually going to look at getting HVAC units on the 3rd floor, a full bathroom, and then a bedroom on the front and back of the unit to give us 4 bedrooms on between the 2nd and 3rd floor. So again, looking to have as many windows as financially possible in the unit to bring as much light into the unit as possible. So with that, again, I'll leave it to you guys to ask questions. I can go into more detail if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request on Excelsior? Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Okay. I'm not hearing anyone in favor. Is there anyone wishing to speak against this conditional use request on Excelsior? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, not hearing or seeing anyone wishing to speak against, we'll close the public hearing portion and we'll open it up to any committee members that may have questions or comments in reference to this particular conditional use request. Any committee members at this point? Yes, Ms. Mosley Samples.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Just really a comment. I want to thank Zach Cole and the WELL staff for all the work they've done over in Middlebury, whether it's in Ward 5 or Ward 10, because they intertwine with one another in Middlebury, which has been a good thing because what Zach and his staff have done over there and continue to do to rehab these homes in the neighborhood has been very extraordinary and something that is much needed. I went to one of their open houses back in December of 2018 at Reverend Schultz Church, where they laid out the plan for what they wanted for that neighborhood. And I appreciate him for that because they actually involved the residents in that neighborhood. And whether it was all the way over the side by over where Jewett is, all the way past Mason, they made sure all those residents had a say in what they were doing. And you very rarely hear that. So I do want to stand in support of your project and the projects that you may have coming in the future, because you've always done it with the residents and the community in mind. And I can't wait to see these duplexes go up, whether in Ward 10 or Ward 5, because we both, Sharon and I, will benefit from this. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Perfect. Well said. Any other questions or comments? Yes, I see Ms. Connor has her hand up.
I would also like to reiterate Ms. Samples' comments. The WELL has been amazing in Middlebury. Their work has always been community focused and with a very direct plan and blueprint for how to make that neighborhood better. 60 homes in less than 5 years is amazing. And we could all do to kind of watch that program and see how it progresses so that our other neighborhoods could benefit from their forward thinking. I also think that neighborhood is perfect to help with because it's so close to Mason School. I think that it's a perfect choice for these duplexes so those young families have stability and are within walking distance of the school. Congratulations, Zach. It's a great program.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Connor. Any other questions or comments at this time?
Mr. Chair, I can see that Councilwoman Amobian has her hand raised.
Of course. Yes, Mrs. Mobian, thank you.
Yes, this is Linda Moby. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I too would like to congratulate Mr. Cold and Mr. Mentor, because I and all of your staff, but I have often talked to Mr. Mentor about the progress that's being made. I attended your strategic planning meeting that you had with the community several years ago, and it's quite impressive to see how the plans that you unveiled at that time are materializing.
Thank you.
So thank you for the investment in that neighborhood. I talked about the children who are homeless and transient. This certainly will provide an opportunity to stabilize families. So thank you very much for your investment.
Thank you, Ms. Mobian. Any other questions or comments at this time from anyone? Okay, not hearing or seeing anyone. I will invite you back again this evening at 7 o'clock. We will have our second public hearing of the day, after which the committee will make a recommendation to all of council in reference to this proposal. So thank you. Thank you for all you do, Mr. Cole. Thank you. We'll close that portion, move on to the third public hearing, excuse me, that we have today. Excuse me, this is ordinance authorizing a second amendment to the 2019 Consolidated Plan and Community Development Program to include the Community Development Block Grant and Emergency Solutions Grant Program. due to COVID-19 stimulus funds as an eligible activity, authorizing the Director of Planning and Urban Development to enter into necessary agreements in the operation and term of these activities and declaring an emergency. I believe Ms. Tomic is here in reference to this particular proposal.
Yes, and I will defer to Mr. Garitano to do the presentation on my behalf. Thank you.
Okay, very good, Mr. Garitano.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Akron's annual Consolidated Action Plan prioritizes federal development of housing and urban development spending, including community development block grant funding, home investment partnership grant funding, and emergency shelter grant funding. The goals of this program are to assist primarily low and moderate income persons to improving existing housing, develop affordable housing, expand economic opportunity, and to aid the homeless. The CARES Act of 2020 designated additional funding to be set aside for the purpose of assisting communities to address community development and homeless needs related to the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. The City of Akron will receive an additional $995,077 in CDBG funds and $1,828,930 in ESGP funds for this purpose. The amendment recommends the following key initiatives. ESGP funds will be used to provide homeless prevention and rapid rehousing rental assistance to assist individuals and families at risk of homelessness due to COVID-19. Assistance to emergency shelters and assistance to the continuum of care to create, operate, and maintain COVID-2019 related quarantine sites as directed by HUD, the state of Ohio, and the city of Akron. And for the CDBG funds, this will be used for the creation of a revolving loan fund for existing and startup businesses within the city of Akron who are impacted by COVID-19. The long-range planning staff recommends approval of the Second Amendment to the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. Did I see Mr. Hardy? Did I see your hand up or your finger up? Yes, by all means, Mr. Hardy, if you have a comment, you're welcome.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee and council, if you recall, we had put together a framework when the CARES Act originally passed, a framework that we felt would be impactful from an equity and from an emergency standpoint of what we were seeing on the ground. A lot of those same issues still remain today. And so what you see before you is essentially additional monies that we received from the federal government, and we're proposing to put them into the same pots. Happy to take any questions. I will say that the revolving loan fund, which we are now calling the Akron Resiliency Fund, is doing extremely well. We've had 4 loans closed on it, including several refinancing of debt from our small business community that racked up a lot, obviously, on their credit cards and elsewhere when they could not get traditional lending from banks and others. And so they put a lot on their credit cards, which have high interest. And one of the big features of this fund is to help folks to refinance that debt into a low interest loan. And it's really made the difference for them. So, you know, this is not a silver bullet for the capital access problem in our community, but I commend council for the foresight in helping us get this started months ago. It really is proving to be very helpful, especially for those for whom the credit score and or their current debt situation do not allow them to get traditional financing from banks. We can be an alternative for them.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. At this time, I'd like to open up if there's anyone, the public hearing portion, anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this condition, or I'm sorry, of the proposal here. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the consolidated plan amendment? I believe that's correct. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the consolidated plan amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Okay. Anyone wishing to speak against the consolidated plan amendment? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone? Okay, very good. We, of course, will have an additional public hearing at 7 o'clock this evening. Open it up to any committee members. I just want to draw council's attention. This is the second amendment to this. January 6th, we all received a correspondence from Mr. Hardy in reference to this, and these expenditures. There's a memo that we all received on January 6th. Is there any questions or comments from any committee members? Any committee members and or council members? Is consent agenda okay on this, or is there a deadline on this particular item?
Consent is fine.
Oh, it's consent is okay. Okay, very good. Well, we'll be making a recommendation this evening. Who knows what it'll be? But,
Councilman Fusco, I wanted to let you know that Councilman Malik and Councilwoman Amobian have their hands raised.
I now see that. Thank you very much, Ms. Viviano. Very good. I'll go ahead and select Ms. Amobian first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hardy, it sounds like a wonderful opportunity that we're providing people, particularly those individuals who are overly in debt and can't get traditional loans. It'd be nice if you could provide more information about the racial mix and the neighborhoods, so that people can see that we are providing assistance to as many people, as much diversity as possible. Because I know that over the years, those are the things I've heard, that people just can't simply get loans. And when you find ways to be creative to help them with their indebtedness and then put them in a low interest loan situation, I think that speaks volumes, and I would love for us to understand what's happening in the city.
Absolutely, Councilwoman. We will put together a briefing and get it to all council members here shortly, and then we can always happy to follow up with any additional information you might need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, actually, Councilwoman Amobian more or less covered what I was gonna, my question. I agree with her that, this is a really admirable program, and I appreciate the memo. I think that the focus on equity in small businesses is really crucial. I guess the only additional question that I had was, Mr. Hardy, could you maybe speak just a little bit to how this aligns with some of the other programs at the county level and with some of our nonprofits, like the Chamber and Britton D. Morgan, and how this aligns with their efforts?
Absolutely. So the programs that we've been a part of and really have been funded through the CARES Act that the county was able to receive through the Chamber, those were CARES Act dollars given away as grants, typically between the $2,500 and $5,000 range. We've now put out, as a community, both Akron, Summit County, and everyone within it, and including other municipalities, we've put out more than $13 million in small business grants, of which almost 50% of that went to small businesses owned by a person of color. It's really something that I myself took for granted because we had these partnerships existing before COVID, but I was reminded by a friend at Brookings the other day that is more than the city of Seattle has put out for their small business community. And so I think it's really a testament to, again, everybody, the way they work in Summit County. But again, those are grants. These are loans. This is also CDBG money as opposed to federal CARES Act money. So it came through the same authorizing legislation, but it's different. And so to your point and to Councilwoman Amobian's point, we are bound by law to record and keep track of geographically or where these dollars are going. They have to meet a certain threshold in terms of the business must be located in a low to moderate income census tract. So there's a lot of different components that have to be put in place and that we've put in place over and above what the grant program was.
Thank you very much. It's really admirable work.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments at this time? Further questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll now move on to the balance of the agenda, which I'm going to recommend time on the balance of the regular agenda, short of any questions or concerns. We'll move in to the new list of legislation that we currently have. And the first item is the resolution adopting the 2021 Capital Investment Community Development Program, legally referred to as the Capital Investment Budget, declaring an emergency. I understand we have a public hearing scheduled for January 25th, correct, Ms. Viviano?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So I'd like to entertain a motion that we refer that item for public hearing?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. The third item on our new list of legislation is the ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into an oil and or gas lease agreement with DP Energy Auburn Limited Liability Corporation, mineral rights for approximately 475 acres of city-owned land at the watershed for gas and oil extraction. I believe Mr. Lettle is here for this possibly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Yes, we've been working on this probably for about a year, and we've been watching the oil prices. This is a lease of 475 acres of our land around the Ladue Lake, which is in the upper watershed. This represents a little under 3% of our total land value up there. We will receive $237,500 for this lease, and they will be putting gas and oil wells on adjacent properties. So none of the equipment, no drilling equipment, no tank batteries, no road access will be on City of Akron property. They are using our property to gather enough land to drill these wells. So the surface rights of this lease, we will not be precluded. We can do our invasive species program, our wetlands management. We can do the normal things that we do to protect our land and protect the lake and the river up there. We will also receive a 15% royalty off of these gas wells. Projected right now, I mean, obviously they could drill and not hit anything, but we will receive 15% of all royalties in the future. They will have 3 years after they do not produce, or if they do not hit anything, to cap the well, and then all the mineral rights do revert back to the city. We could, not that we would, this would not stop us from selling that land. This would not stop us from putting any type of a conservation easement on this land. And like I said, we will still be able to do our best management practices with this land as we have in the past, and we will be in the future. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lettle. Now, this is what we're speaking about here with regards to this ordinance. Is just mineral rights only, correct?
Correct.
Mineral rights only. Okay.
Yes.
Note that. What's the time frame on this legislation, Mr. Lettle? Is there?
Well, I mean, I don't need passage today, but I would like to have consent, unless there's concerns or questions on it. Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from any committee members reference this proposal? Questions from any committee members? Okay. Any council members have any questions or comments reference to this?
Mr. Chair, I can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lettle. I know that a lot of care is always taken with our resources in our watershed. Can you just talk a little bit about what kinds of safeguards or processes are in place, whether it's at the state level or local level, to make sure that the drilling, although it doesn't occur on city property, doesn't have any impacts on the reservoir or on our watershed? I just want to make sure that we are able to share with constituents some of those.
Sure. As you know, all drilling operations, they're governed by the Ohio EPA, and they're managed by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. So all the permitting must go through them. They must submit design criteria to be approved by both agencies. And then as the operation goes on, they're managed by those agencies. So it's all done, the management practices are set forth, like I said, by the Ohio EPA and ODNR.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I see your hands up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lettle, my questions are somewhat similar You're saying that there's no concern with it impacting any groundwater or anything under there?
Well, there, like I said, all our drinking water is surface water, sir. So it's, you know, we have a very unique system where we draw out of the Cauga River, which is from Lake Erie, and it flows down through the most northernmost lake is West Branch, flows through the Cauga River to Ladue, where these wells will be adjacent to, but you know, it's not going to be on our land. And then it flows down the Cauga River to Lake Rockwell. And Lake Rockwell is where we take our drinking water, the raw water, and we process it through that. And like I said, the unique thing is as we use our water through our system, and the Cauga River flows through our city, and you know, it was River of the Year, then our wastewater plant, our water reclamation facility, it discharges right back into the Cauga River. So we like I said, we are one of the unique systems where we pull out of one source and put it right back into the same source. But to answer your question, like I said, governed by Ohio EPA and Ohio Department of Natural Resources. I wish I could share my screen. It's amazing how many wells are up in Geauga County. When you look on our GIS, it's mind-boggling. Now, our land, there is none right around, you know, on our land, but adjacent, which we do not receive any royalties, nor did we receive any upfront money because it wasn't on our land. So,
well, that was my other question. Is this one of those cases where if we don't give them approval, they can't do the project, or where they would be able to acquire a landmass by going another direction, and then we would be locked out of any royalty?
well, I mean, I can't say that they would do the project. They own the land, or they've got lease rights on adjacent land to our property. So my guess is they would still drill. Now, they would not be able to drill underneath our land, okay? They would not be able to do that. Now, if that vein goes from our land to their land, how do we know that they're not drawing under our land and taking the oil and gas, you know?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Allen. Thank you. Yes, further questions or comments at this time? Okay, very good. We had heard that it's suitable for a consent agenda, which we're not meeting next Monday, the following Monday, which gives us 2 weeks. So if there's any further questions on this particular item, any concerns whatsoever, please forward those to Mr. Luddle and CC me, and we'll get those addressed. But in the meantime, I'm gonna entertain a motion that we place this on the consent agenda. Motion for consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Against?
Abstain.
Okay, Ms. Viviana, could you please conduct a roll call? Thank you.
Sure. Lesko,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
Samples.
Abstain.
The motion passes 3-0 with 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Viviano. Thank you. I believe that's the last item that's on our agenda here at 2:36 this afternoon. Short of any questions or concerns, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Sarah, are we going to start service pretty quick, you think? Okay.
Yes, the next committee meeting is public service, and those committee members are Samples, Kamer, Swirsky, Lombardo, and McKittrick. All members are present except for Swirsky. Madam Chair, we're ready to get started when you are.
I'm ready. Keep on rolling. If I could get a motion for approval of our previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
A motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
2 pieces before us. The first one is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for construction of the sanitary sewer reconstruction 2019 large diameter lining project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. A few months back, we brought our small diameter lining project. This is our large diameter project. So it's a little bit bigger project. We did receive a $2.5 million OPWC grant, as you can see in the funding, which that helps a lot with this project. When we talk about large diameter, there's 68 sewer sections that will be lined, 59 different locations. And to give you a few examples of how difficult it would be, these are all identified when we do what we call our CMOM program through the consent decree. So when we TV and clean these sewers, we identify a defect from a 1, which is not too bad of a defect, to a 5. And then when you get a 5, you have a year to fix it. So we have 59 locations, and a lot of this is either where they inject the liner and then use the steam and to line the inside of the pipe to rehabilitate it, or it's actually a spray liner. So a few of the intersections, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is Grand Avenue and South Portage Path. It's a 42-inch sewer. If we were to dig that up, we would destroy the street. Right. And, it would be a big inconvenience. On Johnson Street, we have a 24-inch sewer, which isn't a real big one, but it's behind homes. So access would be very difficult. We'd have to acquire land, that type of thing to do that. We have on Mallison, we have a 66-inch sewer that's getting closer, where Edgewood homes are, over by the zoo. On Broadway and Summit, we have a 36-inch sewer that we're going to rehabilitate. And then on Portage Path at Memorial Parkway, we have a 24-inch sewer that we will line that one instead of digging up the sewer. So there's a bunch of other ones throughout the city. I can give you the specific locations, but then again, we will put those on Drive Akron as we do them. Right. As you'll see, because unfortunately we do have traffic disruptions again in 2021. So
this says on here that the construction is going to begin in May.
Yeah, we're gonna bid it here. Probably once we get the legislation passed, we'll have to bid it, and then once that process goes on, we will probably start sometime in May. Yes.
Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? I don't see any. What's your pleasure, Mr. Lettle?
A consent's okay.
Okay. Can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent agenda.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have one more piece. I'm definitely challenged today on here. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for a water pollution control loan fund, WPCLF bond, and to sign all documents for and enter into a WPCLF agreements with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the Ohio Water Development Authority, OWDA, for the construction of the sanitary sewer reconstruction 2019 large diameter lining project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. This legislation directly relates to the last piece. This is our bond legislation. So we're looking to get a 45-year bond. But in part of this, we are going to sponsor one of our own projects, which is always a good thing up in the watershed. We're doing a Birtland Wetlands project. By sponsoring that, we will get a reduced interest rate. Now, last month, the interest rate was under 1%. So when you sponsor these projects, part of that interest goes to pay for the construction or the mitigation of that wetland project. So we will get 0.05%, which doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, that's like hardly nothing. But when you're getting 14 million over 45 years, we're thinking the potential saving could be $140,000. So that's nothing to sneeze at. So that's our own two utilities, sewer and water and engineering all working together to sponsor one of our own projects. So we won't know the interest rate till we actually get the bond. So I can't tell you what the interest will be, but we're hoping for under 1% like it has been for the 45 years.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Okay, any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Okay, what's your pleasure, Mr. Lettle?
Consent would be fine. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent agenda.
Yeah, can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And we have nothing else coming before us in public service, so we are adjourned.
Great. Our next committee meeting of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Samples, Swirsky, Malik, and McKittrick. All members are present except for Swirsky. We can get started whenever you're ready, Mr. Kamer.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I'll go ahead and call the public safety meeting to order. All members are present except for Councilman Swirsky. Can I get approval of the minute meetings we had from our last meeting, please?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thanks. We do have two resolutions in front of us today. Our first resolution is offered by Councilwoman Omobian. It's a resolution expressing displeasure to the enactment of the Stand Your Ground legislation as signed by Governor DeWine on January 4th, 2021, which makes Ohioans, including law enforcement officers, less safe by dramatically encouraging armed vigilantism in our communities and declaring an emergency. And the sponsor, Councilwoman Omobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's pretty self-explanatory that there is nothing positive about SB 175. It's unfortunate that the governor saw fit to sign this into law because absolutely nothing good has come out of the Stand Your Ground law throughout the nation. And it's only given permission for minorities to be shot and killed who are unarmed. And it doesn't even help the law enforcement officers either. So we can't, on the one hand, say that we are concerned about our babies, brown and black babies that are part of the, not being able to live, to see their first. And then we can't do public health crisis and all of these things, sign a bill into law that's giving people permission. So this law has no place and no business in the state of Ohio, and I see nothing good coming out of it. I mean,
I know, Councilwoman, you're cutting out a lot.
walking around unarmed is killed by a vigilante. And to say that we need something like this in the state of Ohio is absolutely insane. And we do not need this. And I'm just really shocked that Governor DeWine saw fit to sign this into law. So I just want to speak out publicly that is not congruent with the other things that we claim we're about, and we do not need that in the state of Ohio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate it. Just for the record, you did cut out a few times, but I'll ask the committee or any council members if they need to hear more from you. We'll start with Councilman Malik first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilwoman Omobian, for bringing this in. I just want to rise in support of it as well. We have a gun violence problem in the state of Ohio, and yet we're not addressing it. I know Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley, our mayor, and many other mayors have have lobbied the governor and the state legislature to do something. And instead they choose to do this, which makes us less safe, particularly as the resolution points out, it has an adverse impact on people of color who are more likely to be seen as a threat. And it also speaks to the kind of harmful language in our politics, the soundbite language. Stand your ground sounds sensible to everyone, but what it really means is that it removes the duty to retreat when everyone agrees that you can do so safely. When even the person who's shooting, it's clear to everyone that that person could retreat safely. And so it's about encouraging gun violence as unnecessary, like definitionally unnecessary. And that in this year, when we've seen so much bloodshed in our city, it is really disturbing. So, I'm sure that we can, this is something we can all get behind, but hopefully we can continue to lobby our state government going forward.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm looking at the hand raise function first. Don't see anybody else with their hand raised. Anybody else have any comments or questions? All right. With that, obviously, Councilwoman, you kind of want, I'm guessing you'll want suspension of the rules today, correct? Oh, we do got Councilman Freeman.
I came outside so I can, sorry about that, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that's okay. Well, let me go ahead. I know Councilman Freeman, he just raised his hand. Go ahead, Councilman. Did you want to take a comment on this?
Yeah, I just, I've heard talk of this is going to encourage vigilantism. I also have heard talk about retreating, and I think I understand a lot of the points that are being made, but when I'm in my home, where do I retreat to? And that's kind of at the heart of this for me. I can see where there's a lot of problems with this. The one thing that I do wish would have come along with what the governor signed in, I do wish we could have some kind of registration to keep the guns, out of the hands of bad people. But I'll be casting a no vote on this evening. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate your input. Moving forward, Councilman Neal, I see his hands raised too. Go ahead, Councilman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just want to speak with concern to my colleagues' comments. As has been mentioned, we have a serious gun problem in our city. There's already the castle law. If someone enters your home, you have the right to defend yourself in your home. But we have numerous accounts of lawful gun-toting NRA members, card carrying, taking the lives of innocent people under this stand your ground law. As has been mentioned, the language, this is something where we can't, if we have to have some serious discussion, let's have discussion. But I can tell you across the state, many are concerned with the loss of life that's going to come from this. Not a question, it will come from this. I mean, Ohio is in the epicenter of all this mess that's happening in DC. Don't forget, it was men from Ohio that wanted to go to Michigan and kidnap and possibly kill the governor. We can't, there's already legislation that protects someone in their home. This right here gives basically carte blanche to a certain number of our population, and let's not play like it doesn't exist, to take innocent life. And that's my concern. I'm hoping that we can have discussions so that we can stand united as a council against this legislation.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate that. All right, moving on. Let me see. I don't see any other hands up or anything, so I'll leave it up to the. Oh,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just see Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
All right, thank you, Councilman Malik.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I might have just jumped the gun, but I was going to make a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward with your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Let's do a roll call. I want to do a roll call. Brad, I know you were off. Are you okay moving forward?
Yes.
All right, so we're good then. All right, thank you. So we'll report that out this evening. Committee's report is favorable. All right, our second resolution, moving on, is offered by Councilwoman Samples. It's a resolution condemning the actions of those who stormed the U.S. Capitol building on January 6, 2001, and declaring an emergency. And Councilwoman, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I mean, the resolution is self-explanatory. Everyone in America, around the world, saw what happened on January 6th. And it has shaken the fabric of this country and around the world to watch the U.S. Capitol building stormed in such a violent, terroristic manner. And no matter who you get voted for in November, what happened at the U.S. Capitol building has no place in this society, has no place here in America. And just to have to explain such a thing to our children and grandchildren, and to have to keep replaying it over and over across the airways, it has definitely changed America forever. It has changed all of our lives and how we look at our country, at the government in a totally different way. To not agree with someone coming into the presidency is one thing, but to storm not only the Capitol, but to attack those that were there duly to serve and protect those elected members that have been elected by people like us across the country, to kill a police officer and injure other police officers who were just doing their jobs, and call for the hanging of the vice president and calling for the hanging of the Speaker of the House has no place in this country. And I do hope that my colleagues will stand with me on this. I think that we have to show our resounding leadership on this, that these kind of things are not acceptable, regardless of who you vote for, what party you're aligned with. These kind of things cannot be accepted here in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? Looking at the hand raise function first. Councilman Malik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Samples, for bringing this in. I know that we all have heavy hearts having watched what we saw on our TV screens last week. I thought that the most thoughtful thing that was said was later that evening from Senator Romney, when he said that, you know, the best way we can show respect for voters who are upset is by telling them the truth. And I think we all know that to be true. That is something that we all have to come around to. I think that also on Van Jones on CNN said something where he said, this is either the last gasp of a difficult era, or this is the beginning of a darker era. And I think it's on all of us, all 330 million of us in this country, to figure out how to come together, how to not, let our differences overcome us, but also kind of reckon with what happened. An officer was killed. Another officer, died later by suicide. Several of these folks who died, who were supporters of the president, when you look at Miss Babbitt, an Air Force veteran who was indoctrinated over years with hate and conspiracies, and who tragically died because of that. It's sickening. So I hope we all can do our small part pushing forward.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. Obviously, Councilwoman Sample, is your pleasure. You're probably looking for a suspension of the rules.
Yes.
Councilwoman. Okay. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Anybody opposed? All right. With that, we have 2 resolutions we'll present this evening with suspension of the rules. If nothing else comes before us, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay. Our next committee meeting of the day is the Rules Committee meeting. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. Just want to make sure that we do have everyone present. Councilman Freeman and Councilman Fusco, I can see that you're here. Councilman Fusco, can you start your video? There you are. Okay. We're ready to get started whenever you are, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. We'll call the Rules Committee meeting to order. If we could please have a roll call.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
and Malik.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, please?
Motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, very good.
Aye.
We have one resolution coming before us, and this is a resolution congratulating Adele Dorfner Roth on the occasion of her retirement and her many career achievements, thanking her for dedicated service to the city of Akron and wishing her well in all of her future endeavors and declaring an emergency. Do we have, it's hard to see here, do we have anyone that can address this, or maybe we'll hear comments this evening from Ms. Roth?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't mind going if you don't mind. I'd start it off.
No, please, thank you.
Well, listen, Adele has heard this many times before, and those of you that have had the privilege of getting to work with her and know her, she is, to me, she's absolutely fearless in her opinion, and she will not, and she's not shy about it. But you know, that's a rarity sometimes, and the dedication I think that she has shown to the city in all she's done. She's been a tremendous person, a great friend. There's not enough superlatives, I think, in that resolution to show her value. She's the type of person that really is the embodiment, I think, of what good public service is. And I think Ms. Samples noted just a couple of minutes ago that, you know, we all come down here and try to be part of public service. You know, Adele is the embodiment of that in good governance and smart decisions, and she's beyond smart. I mean, she's frustrating at times because she's smarter than everybody else, but that's okay. We have learned from her, and it really has been an honor and a privilege for me to work with her these past 5.5 years. I wish her nothing but the best. I know she's going to stay close, and I'm not deleting her cell phone, so she will be a quick call away. And for those of you that have had a chance to do it, I couldn't sing her praises enough. So I will turn it over to somebody else. But thank you, Adele, for all you've done, not only for me personally, but for this city. I think you're the embodiment of what good city employees do, of which we have a number of them across the city. But thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely. A hearty amen to everything you said. She has just, it only scares me when we maybe lose that institutional knowledge from her years of service. So are there any other comments from either committee members or other council members, please? Okay. Do I have a motion for suspension of the rules?
A couple hands raised here, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. I can't see it on the phone. Yes, thank you. I think that is Ms. Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My phone is going in and out, but I certainly would like to wish Adele
and I assure Adele that right now, Ms. Amobian is saying wonderful things.
And wish her well in her retirement. Thank you.
Okay, you did. Okay, you did
I'm
cut
sorry
out
you
there
can't
a
hear me,
little
but
bit.
yeah, I wish her well, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Who else do we have, Sarah?
Mr. Chair, I also saw that Councilman Fusco had his hand raised and Councilwoman Samples has her hand raised.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. I'll yield to Ms. Samples at this moment.
Very good. Ms. Samples?
Thank you. I want to just wish Adele a happy retirement. You know, no matter where you run into Adele outside of City Hall, she is always so pleasant. She always speaks. She always has a smile on her face. And I think it's important that we give our people their flowers while they're here. And Adele, thank you. I know when we had an issue with the Ain't I a Woman, Adele jumped on it immediately. And we all got together and had ourselves a really good conversation with Pastor Kathy Johnson over at the House of Lord. And I will remember that. And I will miss you, Adele.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I certainly appreciate Adele. I've been worked with her for many, many years. And I appreciate your patience, Adele, speaking to us mere mortals and explaining things sometimes 2, 3, 4, in my case, 7 or 8 times, so I can understand and apprehend what you're saying is appreciated your patience throughout all these years in explaining difficult and hard to understand legislation oftentimes, but thank you for all that. And thank you for your cool and calm demeanor throughout the years. And you're one of the cool people that I know in City Hall. So thank you so much. And congratulations and good luck. And I'm hoping to see more of you. Thank you in your retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
Yes, Councilman Malik, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Adele. Really, I think centrally, I mean, I just wanted to echo what others have said. I've been lucky to sit and learn and listen to all of the things that, you know, you've learned over the course of your time. I remember a meeting in which I was sitting with Deb Forfia and you, and the amount of knowledge about tax incremented financing and, you know, how all of that works. I don't think it's hard to overstate the amount of institutional memory that you and so many others carry. And I know that that's a reflection of hours and hours and hours and hours of service and of time that you've given to this city. And a lot of it thankless, but just, you know, that it's a reflection of so many people who power this city. The city is powered by people like you every day, who are so devoted to it, and I just appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Sarah, am I missing any hands?
I'm scrolling through now. I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, Adele, I see your smiling face there. Thank you so much. Words would fail. I guess at this point, I'd be looking for a motion for suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We look forward to this to addressing this evening. Adele, will you be able to be with us this evening?
Yes, I can be there.
Okay, that would be wonderful because there may be a few other folks that would like to say a few things. So thank you so much. All right, I believe that's all we have coming before us, and we will adjourn at 3:07. Thank you.
Okay, our last committee meeting of the day is the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those committee members are Swirsky, Freeman, Connor, Samples, and McKittrick. All committee members are present with the exception of Swirsky, so Councilman Freeman will be chairing today.
Okay, very good. We will continue here and we'll call the Public Utilities and Green Committee meeting to order. If we could please have a roll call.
Freeman.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Samples. We may have lost her. Let me see if she, McKittrick.
Aye.
Okay. All committee members are present with the exception of Swirsky and Samples.
Okay, if I could have a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. We have one ordinance coming before us today. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for the 2021 Ohio Water Development Authority Research and Development Grant. Impact of 3 powdered activated carbon varieties and pH in the removal of microcystin and hexacystin from drinking water when both are present in the source grant. To accept the grant, if awarded, to execute necessary documents and agreements to expend grant funds and declaring an emergency. And I believe that's the longest name I've ever heard of a grant before, but who will be addressing us today?
That would be me, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you. I
Thank
think
you.
the explanation is perfectly clear what it's going to do. I mean, come on. So no, seriously, this is the harmful algal blooms that you've all heard about in the last so many years. And this is a grant agreement with OWDA. It's $150,000. They are going to provide $75,000 of the grant. Between the city of Akron and the University of Akron, we're going to match the other $75,000. Akron U will provide $57,000 of the $75,000, pretty much as tuition reimbursement to students that will be working with us at the watershed to test the different things for these algal blooms or the microcystin and also the saxosystem. What we're going to do, we are allowed to provide in-kind services. So the only part that we'll be responsible for is $18,000, and the only cash outlay that we have from this grant is less than $5,000. So out of the $150,000, it's a very small portion of cash. It's the in-kind services, the research that we'll be doing, and the powder activated carbon has been kind of our silver bullet up there when we get these high reads in the raw water. This is not our drinking water. This is the raw water. This is before the process even begins. So we've built a new building up there. If you remember last year, you passed legislation that's going to help us not only control the amount, but fine tune the process to help us save in the chemical dosage we use in the raw water. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, very good. We'll ask for questions from the committee first. Looking here. Any other council members with questions for Mr. Luddle? Okay, Mr. Luddle, what would be your pleasure on this?
Consent is fine.
Okay, then. Looking for a motion for consent.
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
And motion and a second. All in favor of placing this item on the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. And one question, Mr. Luddle, when, as far as this grant goes, when do we find out the positive results of our application for the grant?
I can report back to you. I mean, I could ask Jessica Glocheski. She's our manager up there, and she would be better to answer that question. But I would think we work on this because it's a lot of this happens in the warmer temperatures. So the summer is really critical. We don't see as much, but you do still see. You wouldn't think you'd have algae, but we still have some high numbers in the wintertime. So it's not all based on water temperature. But
okay,
I can get back to you. I can get back to you on that, sir. But Jessica, I could have her report back.
Yeah, that was my only question. Is the grant awarded before we tend to think of those algae blooms as being in warmer weather, but
yeah.
All right. I believe that's all we have coming before us, and we will adjourn
Mr.
this
Chairman,
meeting.
I have Chairman, one other thing. I know this is public.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to remind everybody, Ohio State's on at 8:15. I know you guys started 7, so a lot of us didn't get a lot of sleep because of the Browns last night, but keep that in mind.
Okay, that's for the record then, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And we will adjourn at 3:12 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That was our final committee meeting of the day.